I'll take 2-3 minutes more to just tell you what's happening in MMA because some of the people who have come joined us are outside having a refreshment. Let them join in so that I know today is a very nice cricket match and we made sure there's no program yesterday so that you don't miss a good match. Today's match, yes, it's a good match, but tickets are easily available. You can walk in, buy a ticket and walk in. That's very rarely happen because people are so satisfied after yesterday's win. Nobody's watching cricket today. I'll just briefly tell you what's happening in MMA next few days so that you don't miss them. Next event, we are doing it on 5th of June, and this is the event which we are doing online. This is even on Women Business Forum because we get speakers from all over India, in fact, all over the world. Here we have Nisha Dingra. She is a company secretary and director of ONGC. She'll be talking to us. Again, Sabita Nataraj, she is a chief general manager. Lata Rajagopal chairing. The topic is women in public sector. This women in public sector, what they are going to talk easily is the rise of women in public sector. How public sector are also a great organization not to be missed again. This require a prior registration. The journey of a champion. We got the outstanding champion going to come and talk to us. That is one Viswanathan Anand, former world champion chess. We have Geet Sethi, former world champion billiards, and also Virendra Skina, former Indian hockey captain. So it's happening, and this thing is prior registration because we expect a full house is coming in person. So you can have interact with 3 outstanding sports personalities in India. This is happening on 15th of June, Thursday. This we are doing it jointly with Olympic Gold Quest. You know Olympic Gold Quest? You get that 1 gram of gold, how much sweat goes behind. It's a story which is worth listening, and it's happening on 15th of June. 21st of June, again, another interesting read and grow. We have the topic and the speakers will be shared with you later. Then on 23rd of June, again, we have a very interesting event. We are doing jointly with Society of Auditors. It's a talk, a seminar on real estate, agile. What do you mean by agile is all about real estate industry we are going to be discussing. It's a full day seminar where we are going to talk about various accounting issues, GST issues. We also talking about technology in real estate sector, how to promote joint sector properties, joint properties, so many issues. In addition to that, we are also planning to bring one of the outstanding speakers to come and speak safety and security in the areas of real estate industry, that is construction industry. And 26th June, again, we have an interesting event, urbanization, social change and development, the Tamil Nadu model, Tamil Nadu experience. We have got again 2 outstanding speakers because it's an issue which is really concerning each one of us because the way the urbanization is happening, and the people leave their village and come to cities looking for better opportunities because of the communication, because of the opportunity which they see them every day in so many televisions and other channels, social media. What's going to happen to our village folks and how urban thing is getting impacted? We have Vijay Bhaskar, he's a professor of Madras Institute of Development Studies. We have Punnalingam. We also have one of the outstanding consultant from one of the leading organizations who will be talking to us. Then on 28th of June, we have a 1-day seminar on generative AI, the future is here. We are going to talk all about AI and including chat GPT and different segments, and it will be an event by MMA. It's a paid event. It's a full day seminar we're doing jointly with EY, not to be missed. And in addition to that, we are doing our event regularly at different locations. We are doing something on cognitive skills at Future. Shankar Venugopal from Mahindra Well City is going to be talking to us. We have a lecture in Andhra Chamber. We have a lecture in Indian Foundryman on all the different locations, what we are doing as usual going on. So what is happening now is the time for me to talk about this evening program. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the company we keep, insights into Indian corporate culture. When Mr. Balraman spoke to me about this subject, and he also spoke about Divya Khanna, straight away we said we must do this because the subject which is very, very relevant to everyone, and especially large number of management students and young corporate leaders who are watching this program. You will know there's so much of insights in the book which is very, very relevant today. And ladies and gentlemen, we have again an outstanding panel. Please put your hand together to welcome the distinguished author of the company we keep, the book authored by her, and Divya Khanna, she's the author of the book. Then Mr. Siva Kumar, Director of Roots Industries and RV Partner RV Industries. Giridhara Gopal is a Director and CEO of Addison Company, and also have our own Vinay, Kamath, Senior Associate Editor of BusinessLine. May I request that you please take your place on the dais. And Suresh Raman, President MMA. Sorry, my apology. Missed it. The format of the program is after the formal welcome address by the President of MMA. Thereafter, we have the author to set the context of the book. Then we request each of the special invitees to share their insights. They're all from the manufacturing sector. And there is a person who is senior associate editor, deals with so many manufacturing sector. They will share their insights. Thereafter, we will open the question to the audience. And as usual, if you have any questions, there's a question slip available. You can write the question, or you can scan the QR code and send the question. We'll pick up and then we'll also open the question to all the audience. Now it's my proud privilege to request Mr. Suresh Raman, President MMA and also Vice President Regional Head of Tata Consultancy Services Chennai. He manages TCS largest delivery center with over 98,000 associates working there, and his focus area are to provide right experience for customers and associates. And he's also a board member of many executive committee of number of organizations, including Indo-Australian Chamber of Commerce, and is the president of MMA for the year 22-23, and a very, very passionate person who always believed in enhancing the technology use of MMA. This is another reason we adopted technology so easily, thanks to Mr. Suresh Raman, constant endeavor and advice. I request Mr. Suresh Raman to please deliver the formal welcome. Over to you, Suresh.
Good evening to all of you. It's indeed my privilege to deliver the formal welcome address at this very special program, a discussion on the theme of the book, The Company We Keep, Insights into Indian Corporate Culture, authored by Ms Divya Khanna, who's come all the way from Bangalore to join us this evening. I take this opportunity to thank Conrad Adner Stiftung for supporting the event as always. I welcome Mr. C Siva Kumar, Director Roots Industries India Ltd, Mr. G Giridhara Gopal, Director and CEO, Addison and Company Limited, and Mr. Vinay Kamath, Senior Associate Editor, the Hindu BusinessLine. I also take this opportunity to welcome the members of MMA from all over Tamil Nadu and Pondicherry, invitees and guests from other organizations, and the large number of participants from all over the country who have joined us online this evening. For the benefit of members from other organizations, let me briefly recount that MMA was established in 1956 with the aim of propagating management movement in this part of the country, and over the years, MMA has evolved into the largest management association in the country with over 8,000 members, organizing over 750 events a year. Besides its regular activities, MMA has also been actively working toward the skill development of students from underprivileged backgrounds studying in poor schools as a part of its CSR initiative. MMA has been ranked the best management association in the country for the last 13 years in a row. I repeat, last 13 years in a row by the All India Management Association. I think culture eats strategy for breakfast is a prominent saying in the business world, often attributed to Peter Drucker. And India is such a vast, populous, diverse nation encompassing many different identities, languages, cultures, and religions. Hence, it's very difficult sometimes to make any generalization about Indian culture. Our chairman from Tata Group, Chandrasekharan, always talks about India's diverse landscape providing so many unique challenges for employment generation, considering huge the population as well as increasing urbanization need to adapt to emerging technologies as well. And most importantly, ways of working are evolving. And today we are talking about hybrid. Earlier we used to have work from office, then work from home, then today we are talking about hybrid. So the culture itself is changing and evolving, and one cannot say I know what it means how to run an organization today. I think that's the thing. And in TCS, I see almost every day is new now for me. So what we did earlier probably is not relevant today. And that's where this books like this, I think I was very enticed when Group Captain was talking about this book. It's the culture. How do you determine the culture of a company? And how do you ensure people imbibe the culture? I think it's going to be a challenging situation, because in the IT industry, we have probably in our company itself, we have recruited about a couple of lakhs in the last couple of years or so. So imagine the number of people coming on board, and how do you ensure they imbibe the culture of TCS? And I think I don't know whether any of you have seen this, Netflix is airing a docu-series called Working. What do we all do every day, right? It is inspired by Studs Terkel's work from 1970s. This docu-series chronicles everyday hustles of workers from low-wage workers to the C-suite folks. Across the board, all want their work to be meaningful and provide for family and community as well. I think it's very important to, Divya's book echoes this same sentiment. And so what's work culture, right? A few years ago, idea of work was very different. Barring few exceptions, one could broadly categorize their day across work and home. Accelerated by COVID, the world of work has undergone a massive reshuffle. We switched from learning to balance by bringing work to home and to almost full-time working from home. So much so, it seems that it's almost impossible to bring workforce back to the office from home, at least for the IT industry. It will take years for us to unlearn this practice of merging work and home seamlessly. So culture is something that grows and evolves with time. And few things I thought we'll talk, probably, I don't know how much we are going to cover today, but a lot of things which as a company in TCS or Tata Group, we talk about the customer-oriented culture, the people-oriented culture, the diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is an important topic which all our customers, the sustainability culture, and so many things are there, the innovation culture, and everything is about how do you create even subcultures in an organization, right? So I think also with the AI, I think group captain was talking about a generative AI and machine learning, everything is coming into place. So I don't know whether, I think probably from the manufacturing industry itself, a lot of things are going to evolve, and there will be chief robots officer. I don't know if the title, CRO might be there, new title. So how do you manage? And more importantly, the human machine interface is going to take a lot of focus. The culture will not be about just human beings, but culture of managing humans and machines together. I think that is going to be very, very different. I don't think we have just scratched the tip of the iceberg, and I don't think we still understand what that culture is going to be on human-machine interface. I think they're very, very interesting times, challenging times, but going to be very, very exciting times as well. So in our company, I just thought I'll talk about from a culture perspective. I think she's talked a lot about how employees have to be taken care, etc., and very important for them to be part of their culture and organization. We have something to see how to make a human being a well-rounded professional, ensuring he's fit for everything, right? And physically fit, mentally fit. We have something programs for fit for life, we call it, and then we have something for purpose for life, giving back to the community. We have circle for life, giving back to the environment. We also learn for life. It's about learning continuously on the job as well as every day, because things are changing every day. So I think it's going to be very, very exciting times, and innovation is going to be very, very key going forward with all the technological challenges. And I like the word, she had a couple of things she used, collaborative collusion. Collaborative collusion. I think that's going to be probably a collaborative collusion culture probably. So it's going to be very, very interesting, and there are a lot of debates, and even within our company and the IT industry about work from office, work from home, the hybrid environment, etc. I think the water cooler discussions are not happening when people are working from home. It's also not good in the long run, being a social animal. So a lot of things which we are deliberating on a culture perspective, and a couple of things I thought I will point out, which was very interesting, what she has talked about. I don't want to take away the discussions, but she talked about something was stopping in between, right? Pausing for introspection. I think one of our chairman also talks about you cannot keep running, right? Even in T20 cricket, you have to pause and see how the ball is coming to you, how the pitch is, right? I think very important to pause for introspection. I think a lot of interesting things have been covered. I don't want to take too much on this, but overall, I think in our company we talk about work-life integration. It's no longer about balance, because people are carrying work to the office home to the office as well. So they have their own WhatsApp chats and other things going on also parallelly. So work-life integration is going to be a very different challenge, which we need to see how to get it evolved. So I think the other interesting topic is we always discuss in our company, which probably she's covered, probably is hard work and smart work. I think you have to do initially the hard work to learn how to do the smart work probably. That's the way at least I looked at it. And I think I can go on and on. So I thought I will leave to the panelists here and also Divya to take forward many of the other discussions. I think it's an extensively researched book, dwelling into depth various aspects of Indian corporate culture. It's not about the glamour or the jargon. but it's about a lot of stories that she shares, a lot of personal insights also into the aspirations, vulnerabilities, pressures, and possibilities of corporate careers and lives. I think it's very interesting. I think I am very eager to listen to this conversation today. I think so will you, all of you be. I once again welcome all the distinguished guests and thousands of viewers from all over the globe watching this program live. Wishing you all a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Suresh. Before I request Divya to come and share insights on the theme of the book, let's have the privilege of, may I request Divya to step forward. It was an honor to have a soft launch of the book so that we have a picture with all the panelists in the book. Can you all please step forward for a picture of it? Let's check it. Let me have the privilege of introducing, before I call Divya to come and share things, I'll also introduce all the distinguished panelists for this evening. Let me have the privilege of introducing first the author, Divya Khanna. Before I read about her, I really understood how passionate, how compassion is so much here. In fact, when I told her, why you are going back the same night, you could have stayed here and gone tomorrow morning flight. She said, no, my cat is very unwell. I have to get back tonight so that I have to take care of the cat. That shows, the compassion in you, and I think you have a pet in your house, you know how much you get involved with them. Divya is an alumnus of Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, having worked in with two India's largest advertising agencies, Lintas and also Walter Thompson. She is the authority on this subject and does quite a bit of research work. She has about 20 years of experience in advertising. She specializes in observing and analyzing human lives and also behavior to develop insights and ideas that help build brands. Thank you, Divya, for joining us this evening. Let me also introduce other distinguished panelists before I request Divya to speak on the theme of the book. C Siva Kumar. Siva Kumar is a director of Roots Industries Limited and also RV Industries partner, and also multiple businesses he does, from jewelry to Titan to other group of activities. A strategic thought leader, quality-driven, passionate serial entrepreneur. He has also nearly redefined the perception of small and medium industries in the manufacturing space, especially around asset-light manufacturing. Apart from guiding his retail organization towards an innovation and customer-centric excellence, is currently also director of Roots Industries Limited, Skillberry Training Limited, Plant Technologies, managing partner of RV Industries, Prabha Associates, Timelinks, many companies. Sometimes I have to ask him, do you remember all the company which you run? He still says very confidently, yes, I remember. Very warm welcome to Siva Kumar. Pleasure to have you this evening. Let me introduce the other distinguished panelists for this evening. Giridhara Gopal, Director and CEO of Addison Company, and is a graduate from Mechanical Engineering from Anna University. He is also a certified management accountant and also Institute of Cost Accounts of India. He is currently the Director and CEO of Addison, as I mentioned to you earlier. He is also Director of LM Vamp Nops Diamond Tools Private Limited. Earlier, he was also Sales and Product Engineer, Grindville Norton, and a part of a Saint Gobain group of companies. Very warm welcome to you, Giridhara. Pleasure to have you this evening. Let me also welcome and introduce our Senior Associate Editor into BusinessLine, Mr. Vinay Kamath, well-wisher of MMA, good friend, always take care of MMA, guides us and shares with so many inputs. Vinay is also Associate Editor of Into BusinessLine, based in Chennai. Prior to joining BusinessLine in 1998, he did a short stint in television with the TV18, where he was the Chief News Bureau, Chennai. He had earlier worked at Financial Express, Business World, Times of India, and Economic Times. You know what a high-profile panel we have for a lovely discussion this evening. As I mentioned in the format, we'll request author Divya Khanna to share her insights. Thereafter, I request Siva Kumar will speak for 5 minutes, all the special invitees, then Giridhar, then Vinay, and then we'll have a small interaction, informal chat between them, free-flowing conversation. Then we'll open the floor for questions. Already questions started coming in my telephone from all online viewers. Once again, viewers watching this program online, if you have any question, numbers flashing on the screen, please share your questions. Now I request Divya to share your insights on the book, please. Over to you, Divya.
Can you use this? Yeah. Can everyone hear me? Yes. So thank you so much, Group Captain, for the kind introduction. I would really like to thank the MMA and all of you for taking time out on a working day. I know that can be quite difficult. So thank you so much for showing interest in my book. I am very, very privileged, honored, and feel extremely lucky to be here today. I'm just going to share a brief overview of why I wrote this book. In 2017, I was burning out. And I don't know if it's something that everyone goes through. Sometimes it feels like, when I've started talking to people about it, it seemed like something that everybody was going through. Basically, I was overstressed, I was overworked, I felt I was doing a lot, but it was somehow not translating. And in hindsight, I know that when you work too much, actually your work can suffer. And that's extremely demotivating because you feel, oh, I worked so hard, I did this, I did that. And actually it's not translated into any results. So my health was suffering, I didn't have much of a personal life, and I really started feeling like nothing in my life or in my work was making sense to me. And at that low period, basically, I just felt like I wanted to get out. I just need a break, I can't do this anymore. And so I took a year to kind of, figure things out for myself financially so that I could take a break. And when I took a break, I started focusing on my health and, I did a lot of intensive treatments. And during that time, I had a lot of time to think and introspect, which I didn't have in my hectic career of 16 years before. And I started realizing that, maybe everything didn't happen to me, maybe I made some things happen. And I also felt that, while I was taking a break, it was never my intention that I'm never going to work again. But I was very keen that if and when I do get another corporate job, I need to do things differently. So that question was there in my mind. And also, if you read my book, you will start realizing there are certain cultural conditioning that we all have as Indians. So, while Mr. Raman very rightly said that, we're a very diverse country, it's very difficult to identify one unifying thing. But some of the unifying things are that as Indians, we feel we are very hardworking and we feel we need a purpose and we need to be doing something. Sitting idly by and being Vela is not something that anybody aspires to. And so while I was looking for something to do in my break, I started realizing that at least for myself, I wasn't sure if anybody else would be interested, but for myself, I felt I needed to get these answers because I didn't want to make the same mistakes again. So that is why I started this research project, and then I started writing, and I was very, very lucky. Not many people can say this, but I was very lucky that COVID happened. And the only reason is that, suddenly something that was a niche topic became something more important and more relevant to everyone, and that is why my book got published. So my book is actually covering 4 sections, and I hope that some of you will take time to read it and share your feedback with me. The first part of it is cultural conditioning. It's the deep conditions that probably everybody, not just the corporate world, we all grow up with. We have a certain competitiveness within us. We have, we have a lot of status consciousness. We need to know where we stand in relation to the people that we are talking to and interacting with. I can tell you for a fact, for the last 1 hour, I have been sitting intimidated by all the distinguished people on the panel, wondering what I should call them. Do I call them Mr.? Do I call them by name? Because this is something that we are conditioned, right? These are very experienced and people of high designation, and I don't know how to address them because I'm also status conscious, right? So the first part of the book covers topics like that. The second part actually gets into the corporate lifestyle. What are the attractions of the corporate lifestyle? Why do we want corporate careers? And what are the kind of compromises that we have to make to kind of get our careers going? And the third part of the book actually looks at different stages of the corporate life cycle. So I look at, freshers, people who are in their first job, people who are in middle management, people who are in senior management, and then I also take a brief look at the retired cohort, because today health is such that people can retire, but they're still functioning and they're still perfectly capable of contributing. I know from personal experience because my father has officially retired 3 times and he's still working more than I am. So that cohort as well. And then I realized that, there's a lot of information which informed my introspection. I kind of know where I went wrong. And hopefully that introspection will help other people to reflect. So I don't think I have any answers for you. I just have a lot of information that might help you decide for yourself whether you are right or wrong, where you could be kind of changing track. The last section of the book is actually where I have gone to experts, because I felt that some direction was needed and I was not the person to provide it. So I have Kalyani Kapoor, who is a psychotherapist, and she has written a chapter on how, from a neuroscience point of view, how our brains tend to react and why certain things might be happening to us and how we can kind of address them from an individual psychotherapic point of view. Then I have a chapter by Ashok Kapoor, who is the ex-MD of Diageo USL. And he has written from a management point of view to say that, as a leader, what can be done and what kind of direction could be possible. And then I have Mr. R.R. Nair, who has written from an HR point of view. And then I have Rohit Krishan Gulati, who is an architect and design expert, and he specializes in workspace design. So he has given a design point of view. So Mr. Raman talked about collective collision. That's from his chapter, where he's talked about, how in certain types of industries, what are the kind of things they need to consider to get the collaborative culture working. So that is a brief overview of my book. Now I would love to hear from the panelists what they think and what their feedback is. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Divya, for talking to us about the book. Now, dignitaries on the dais, Divya Khanna, the author of the book, Giridhara Gopal, Giridhara Gopal, Director and CEO of Addison and Company, Vinay Kamath, Senior Associate Editor, The Hindu BusinessLine, and Mr. Suresh Raman, President MMA, Group Captain, Executive Director MMA, and all those of you who've gathered here, ladies and gentlemen, and many viewers who are watching it online. It's a great evening. CSK has won the matches today, and all of you must be mighty thrilled about how the game went. Many of you would have been in the ground, but off the ground, there are a lot of, I run a few of the retail outlets. When CSK plays, I can be sure that all of us in the shop can go for rest, because there will not be a single walk-in when CSK plays. If CSK is losing, the crowd starts again. Okay, so now CSK or brand CSK, like what Mr. Suresh Raman told you, it's all about the culture. Each of the cricket teams have a culture. Because if a person is going to miss a catch, how are you going to handle it? Is there going to be a big beating post the match? Or you're going to give him a briefing before the next match? It's a culture. So everything starts with culture. And let me talk to you about the great author. First thing, hearty congratulations, Divya, for coming out with a very, very nice book. There's a nice book from Warren Buffett, which talks about the human side of an enterprise. Globally, we talk about the human side, but of late, in the last 5-10 years, the human side of Indian organizations have become very, very important. Now, this book, when you go through, like she pointed out, has 4 parts. The cultural undercurrents. When you go through that, you will know what employees feel about the culture of the organization, sometimes suffocating, sometimes rewarding. So what's the culture and what's the undercurrent? The lifestyle compensation and compulsions, corporate life cycle, and experts' reflection. There are about 19 subsections between these 4 parts. You can buy a book, read it through. You'll find it very interesting for many reasons. I'll tell you why. It is a very well researched book. It is not her thoughts alone. It's not the thoughts of a few people or the corporate leaders. She has researched, she's had discussions with various people which is sector agnostic, maybe a little bit less on the manufacturing space, but predominantly on the service side and the IT space, researched, and then some of the results of the polling that she conducted, the outcome of the polling is also part of the book. Given the different sections to say what different people spoke about, and then your own findings, and then a poll is a complete thing to understand the Indian culture, which is most complicated in the world. Now, 6 o'clock or 6:30 is a movie time. So let me talk about a little bit about movie from the book. Many of you would have seen the 19th, would not have seen, I'm sorry. Many of them are from 2000 and 1990. She's written about a movie in 1975. Amitabh Bachchan and Shashi Kapoor, starring in the movie Diwar. Am I pronouncing it right? Diwar, yeah. And it is in the chapter Carrot and Stick. There's a dialogue between Amitabh Bachchan and Shashi Kapoor. And let me tell you what the dialogue is. Bachchan says, and I quote from the book and from the movie, "Aaj mere paas building hai, property hai, bank balance hai, bangla hai, gaadi hai, kya hai tumhare paas?" He asks his brother. And the brother, who takes the righteous path, says, "Mere paas maa hai." If I told you the dialogue 10 years back in Tamil Nadu, I would have become a minister. But yet, okay. So he said, it was a pre-emergency period where earning money and the kind of taxes that you have to pay is very high. So if you made very, very big money, you're kind of a suspect. Corporate salaries were not very high in 70s or 60s, so you can't amass so much wealth. But all that Amitabh Bachchan wanted to say is that success means wealth, money, building, and many, many things. That would have gone well in the last century. Today's century, even your own son will turn back and ask, is that wealth or is it success? Or what is it? Now, why did his brother say that "Mera paas maa hai"? It's because he felt that the Indian values have been ingrained into his heart, and therefore he said, "Mere paas maa hai." Now, when you join a corporate, in the current context, when you join a corporate or you start working, you have hefty salaries. You have perks. Some of you would have earned, in 1 year, you'll be earning almost your 20 years of your dad's salary. That's the new generation. People skip jobs once in 2 years. People try to adjust to the culture because you won't lose your job. And so new culture, new salary, new perk, new way of living, lifestyle changes, all these come with a challenge. How are you going to cope up? I'll speak about that a little later. But let me now go back to the film, conclude the film, and take you through another path. If the film was rewritten today, what the author says, it's not my own version. So if the film was rewritten today, one where the brother achieves wealth, whether through a corporate career or by setting up your own business, he will also have his mother by his side. If he's made the wealth, the mother will be by his side. And who disclaims wealth, however noble his intentions may be, will be failure who is able to offer his mother neither a comfortable life nor the respect of the society. So that's the world in which we are living now. Wealth has become very important. And so all of us have started chasing wealth. And by chasing wealth, we have realized that it's a wrong desire. Sometime down the path, you will realize. And that's been dealt in the book as well. So if you're going the Amitabh way, where wealth alone means, Amitabh way means not the Amitabh way, but the movie Amitabh way. Okay? So the Amitabh way of the movie, or the Shashi Kapoor way, if you're looking for corporate salaries, perks, and all that, you need to understand that these come with a challenge. You have deadlines to meet in the corporate. You have unrealistic targets set by your boss. There are a lot of pressure from your peers. Working long hours means you're performing well in the organization. You need to say yes to your boss very often, because if you have to climb the ladder, otherwise it could become a snake if you're not a great boss. So say yes to your boss too often. Aligning with very difficult boss, less sleep, more stress, all these come as a package. The good salary along with the negatives that I've spoken. So how do you balance yourself? You need that big salary as well as the negative ones that come up. It all depends on you. The corporate has to find a fine balance. Individual has to bring about a fine balance. And if you can bring about a fine balance, what is lot of pleasure? Lot of pressure may become pleasure, like Dhoni. Every pressure for Dhoni is a pleasure, and every pressure and pleasure for CSK is great for all of us. So the last part of the chapter, so I've spoken to you about a carrot and stick, and the last part is a huge emphasis on the HR aspects. HR has a very, very big role to play in this complex corporate world. The corporate goals are demanding. There is intense competition, and therefore the employees have to gear up to face the competition. So what is the HR job is just not about motivation, recruitment, or retainment, and many other things. It is also to bridge a gap between boss and the subordinates, to really understand the employees, give them breaks, they all like some short excursions. It's listed in the book. You can have an employee community, and you should give them a feeling that we have a social care for anyone working in the organization. She also emphasizes the word T for every employee. T is the width and the depth that the employee must have in his own thinking. And finally, I just want to say that if you as an employee want the wealth as well as the happiness, there are 4 things that the HR has to stress, and Divya has rightly pointed out that the physical well-being of the employee is very important, the mental well-being of the employee is very important, the emotional well-being of the employee is very important, and the spiritual well-being of the employee is very important. Finally, I'd like to thank Group Captain for actually predicting that CSK will play yesterday and not today. If we were playing today, the hall would have been empty. So good, Divya, and good luck for CSK and for all the people here. We'll hear what the other panelists have to speak, and then we will have 1 or 2 rounds of questions from the panel as well as from you. And we will also take in questions from the viewers who've all gathered from all over the country or the rest part of the world. Thank you very much.
Respected panelists, Ms Divya, Group Captain, Mr. Suresh, and all the members of MMA and other viewers both on and off the line. The thing is, when we come the third to talk about, most of the points are taken by the other speakers. So whatever notes you made, the first thing is you got to strike off what has been spoken, so the audience is not bored with it. So after striking, I see nothing greatly there going to be. But anyway, she was mentioning, she's more to do with the service sector that she talked about, because she had worked more in the service sector, but the manufacturing sector, it's not much covered as what the other readers were saying, but I represent manufacturing sector. I've been in manufacturing for the last 30 years. The biggest problem with people like us, or probably with me, is that when you read a book for 5 minutes, read the 5 pages, then try and apply whether, introspect whether you're applying it, or somebody else reads it and tell you next day, but please read the book. So most of the time you read it, you apply it and see whether you're there. So And after hearing from Shiv that he's covered most of the, very nicely covered in all the articles, same with Mr. Suresh who did it. I look at it from a completely different perspective. Because it is not written about manufacturing, I want to see it from manufacturing sector where we are. Then how do we solve the problem? Because the operational issue is, how do you solve the problem is what the CEOs have to look at. In a lighter vein, to start with, I have to say, Ms. Divya went through the stress. Good that she has went through the stress, so we got a good book. Okay, so that's the first thing. I read most of it. When people talk about the first title that you say, the company we keep, the manufacturing people, first thing what thinks about it is artificial intelligence, machine interface, machine language, and that's what comes into you, because that's what the company is going to, all that you think is, this is what going to keep the company. What the company we keep is not that. This is what going to keep the company. That's how we look at it. In such a scenario, the book that talks about, once again, the human asset, which is very, very important. We talk about it on and off when there's a problem, but we forget it in between. But it's totally talked about the asset, which is called human, which is going to make even the machines and artificial intelligence work on time. After all, the machine is going to copy the human brain. It's not going to create on its own. And that she talked about it. But she really very empathetically, she says what goes through. It's more a personal experience, and then it's a friend's experience supported by a lot of data. Now coming to the book, it is simple language, and very simple for even a common man to understand, and probably it follows through. Coming to the book, in this book, she shares the insights to Indian corporate culture and how lifestyle compulsions, very important word, which again, both of them covered, lifestyle compulsions of individuals, corporate undercurrents, and its life cycle, influence the life of employees today, is what talked about. Again, this enunciates, she was saying, enunciate the need for change in our approach to basic living based on the fundamentals, what our ancestors have talked about. We have forgotten over a period of time. That's what this enunciates eventually. In the last session, of course, she deals with reflections and other expert opinions. See, the two buzzwords, two cliche, I would say, not buzzwords, is work-life balance and stress. Even a child talks a word called stress today. 3-year-old talks about stress. I'm very stressed, is what a child says. Work-life balance is, again, it's a very common word. When you say, what is the problem at home in life? And you say work-life balance. And what is work-life balance? Not many knows, because it's talked in every magazine and book and everything. It's just not. Actually, she talks about how the corporate people talk about, go through this. Actually, the work-life balance stress affects every human being in this world today. It's not just people who are employed in corporates. Everybody. Work and the problem, and I see it, as I told you, I look at it from different perspectives. Work and life are not two things. Work has life in it and life has work in it. That's the problem. The integral part of it, nobody can differentiate. Nobody can differentiate. We are trying to see work inside and life one side, and then trying to balance it. You can never balance because it's already integrated. You can't split them today. Ambitions, everything is gone into it. So that's where we're trying to do things which fail invariably. We try many things. You do yoga, you do everything. Again, you come back to the norm things. I have no work-life balance because it's not under your control. It's with the whole environmental control. So therefore, you need to go through the root cause of it. That's what the manufacturing guys go through. Go through a root cause and try and sort it out. We are a generation who are the mid-50s, or the generation who are looking at both. Our parents, they never talked about work-life balance. They never talked about stress. They never talked about anything, but they all lived happily. The generation next to us only talks about this, nothing other than that. And they try and find happiness with it. You try and advise these people for what the advice that you received from your parent. It's a very unique situation for this generation to go through. So she was talking about the identity, very nicely. She says about identity. So we need to take two things, identity of an individual, identity of a corporate. Identity of an individual, she was mentioning. Earlier, identity of an individual was based on his education, his good habits, his contribution to society, his family background, his status, other things. But today, as you were saying, it just talks about your status and the wealth. That's it. That's the identity of yours. The rest goes. The path that you make it to make the wealth is forgotten. Somehow you make it is all that people talk about. How you made it, nobody questions. It's an immoral way, unethical way, nobody bothers about it. But then if this is the case, then you come to the identity of the corporate. How do you value the corporate today? To the industrial world, I'm part of a group which talked about industrial world those days. What does the industry wants? What does people want? That's how the products came in. And then the companies were valued what they were contributing to society those days, 60 years ago. After independence, what the companies did to society, to country. But today, the identity of the company is what revenue it makes, what profit it makes, how much dividend it pays. That is the identity of the company. When that is what the stakeholder want, that is what the employees want, how do you expect corporate culture to change is the question that comes to you. As long as that doesn't change, we will only do a medicine. You do this, they'll correct it. But the fundamentals will never get corrected. So that is something which I think we'll have to look at it. Individuals also, she deals with one thing. The individuals have to change. It's a cultural change. It's a societal change. That's not in your hands. So because the entire society mindset should change. That's not in Divya's hands. So she takes the other one. The corporate can at least address it, no? That is how she looks at it. Forget about the individuals, but corporate at least, one part of the segment can address it. So therefore she just says, here the path cannot be ignored. The individual, how unethically, how he makes the wealth, you can't question because that's left to individual and the people. But the corporate, at least it's under control of the CXOs, control of the government. So there, at least if you can control the path, maybe the life of the people attached with stakeholders can be addressed, is all that she's talking about. And that's where she goes in. And so the other thing that I wanted to do is the ambiguity. The ambiguity is, she was talking about the difficulty of choice between. So why does this happen? On the front page, she talks about difficulty of choice between the anchor and chain, between the free falling and the flight. Very nicely she has put in. This is what the individual makes. It's very nice to talk about. Don't do this, don't go behind wealth, don't do this. I mean, it's not that I want to go, I've been pushed into it. What do I do? Is what every individual questions himself. He doesn't want to stress on his own. He doesn't want to screw up his life. But that's what I'm pushed into, so what do I do? So that she says difficulty is acceptable. That is what happens. But then from then, how do you, overcome it is all that she talks about. The other interesting thing that she talks about, which was highlighting to me, was what the Mahabharata epic she's quoting. One side, Duryodhana is supposed to come to the throne because Dhritarashtra is the eldest. In another way, Dhritarashtra was ineligible, therefore Pandu becomes the king. In that case, Dharma should become there. Both sides, there is a reason. There is there's a reason for both of it. Then what decision do you take? She was mentioning that on one part, which was very interesting. That's what most of the time in the corporate we go through. Do we answer the shareholders to make more dividend? Or do I make the employees happy and their mere bike living? That's the ambiguity the CEOs go through today. That's very nice. So both are right. You got to take care of the employees who make the company. You got to take care of the shareholders. You got to take care of other things because that's what customers are eventually. They are the one who make the company. So which one do I do it? So that is where the ambiguity lies with the CEOs and how do you balance it? That's where the challenge is. That is what you're paid for, is the answer that all of us get it. And does it happen? Will it happen? What she says is going to happen. It's going to happen is what I think. ESG is what people are talking about. Environmental, society, corporate governance is all going to be mandatory at some point of time. The companies have to do it and declare it, which is environmental. Today, go green, carbon initiatives, carbon footprints, all that are being talked about. You are supposed to follow certain guidelines. So one, societal, the corporate social responsibility have come, that is insignificant part of it, you're contributing. But the corporate responsibility lies with the company. Slowly, it's not CSR, percentage of profit is given, then I've forgotten, it's not that. So you are committed to the society, is what is coming. And if you do the proper corporate governance, that's the third one, obviously the other two are taken care. That is what. So what she's mentioning, what she's advocating, I think it will become a reality, at least in corporate, in the very near future. The other one, which is very interesting is for me, that's what took me more time to mug up. I'm very allergic to the medical terminology and words. She's talking about neuroscience. She was saying neuroscience, how it can influence the solution she was talking about as an individual. The three things that I tried to mug up, but still I failed, is oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine. They're very difficult to mug up for people like me. But I thought these three things I have to mug up to give me a lecture to my employees some point of time, so that they think that I am really intellectual in understanding neuroscience. So I tried my best to do it. The other one that you talked about, I've always thought these medicines are there to influence Your energy is possible, sharpness is possible, and motivation, yes, because you are energetic, there's motivation. The fourth thing start to cover, even ethics can be brought into people through some neuroscience and medicine is something very new to me. I've never read it. So neuroscience is one. Maybe every company should hire a neuroscience to probably prepare a vaccination like what COVID has got it, inject into every employee. So the first ethics come into everybody, then the rest, everything will follow, is what that I could do it. Then the last one I want to say is, the book title is Company We Keep. Company we keep, she advocates, her opinion is company we keep. If you keep it well, it addresses every corporate employee. But I see it in the other way also. Company we keep. The other meaning is group of people you keep is what influences your life. So company we keep has got two meanings in me. Company, organization you keep makes better corporate employees. Group of people you keep with you makes your life better. So that's the two things that do it. Thanks MMA. I want to thank MMA for giving me a free book, which gives me an expensive, very expensive values. But they give me one more book for me to share it to somebody, and again, I credit that I have given them a lot of insight into it. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity. And I thank Kamath.
Yeah, so yesterday I had intended to spend the evening reading Divya's book thoroughly, but then I got invited to the match, so I had to sacrifice the book for the match. Sorry, Divya. And so I was just thinking, if CSK is a corporate and the CEO is Dhoni, I mean, what kind of corporate culture would that company have? I mean, the man is like a rock star and with a sea of yellow waiting to greet Dhoni. It'd be interesting to study, what kind of feedback or reverse sweep of this CSK culture has happened with the parent company India Cements. Probably make for an interesting case study for somebody, if somebody is wishing to pursue it. So I'll just keep it short and sweet because I'm sure all of us are waiting to have a dialogue with Divya. I didn't do that in-depth homework as Shiva and Giridhar of the book, but I did go through large parts of the book, and so the book spans a whole gamut of emotions, from stress to relationships to bad bosses, to office politics, physical and mental health. And there are a whole lot of issues that Divya has raised. And I really like the fact that she's approached the book with a lot of stories, humanized the book, brought in personalities, put people there, put names and faces, and brought in some real life incidents. All that actually makes it for a very evocative read. I think I always love anecdotes in a book, and this kind of embellishes the whole narrative. And I'm sure all of you who read the book will find that makes for really powerful reading. And there are a lot of real life anecdotes also that Divya has thrown into the book, which makes for a very powerful reading. And there are a lot of issues, very naughty issues that Divya deals with, and how individuals in her narrative have actually dealt with these situations, whether it's dealing with a bad boss, or whether it's politics in the office, or whether it's a relationship at home with the families. I think the book spans a whole lot of issues and tries to answer them. So I think I'm sure it makes for a very good read if all of you pick up the book and go through it. There are a lot of interesting issues that the book raises and also answers. And of course, I've got a whole lot of questions for Divya, as have the other panelists. So we'll just listen. We'll put those questions to Divya and probably make for more engrossing conversation. So thank you all.
We have, yeah. Me, no. You have a mic? Yeah. Check. It's on? Check. Is it on? Yeah. Vinay, would you like to take a question and then I'll follow on?
So Divya, going through your book at length, find you've dealt with a lot of relationships, with a lot of office situations, and how people deal with that, how people deal with their bosses and all that. But I was just wondering, it's already upon us here, the gig economy is already upon here. I think all of us have worked in traditional companies but increasingly we are seeing that, the way employees relate to companies, if they're on a contractual role, what does that do, one, to their attitude and their understanding of the company? And reverse, how does the company deal with these people in trying to develop a corporate culture? Have you thought about these issues? I mean, I think increasingly companies will face this as going forward.
So my research did not cover the gig economy, but the last 4 years I have been part of the gig economy. And I can say, I don't know if it's true for everybody, but for me, my wanting to be part of the gig economy was a reaction to the corporate culture that I couldn't deal with. Because as a contract worker, I can say no much more easily. Because there's a contract and the contract says what I will do, what I won't do, and how much I will be paid for it. Whereas when I was an employee, my contract didn't really say anything. In fact, when I read the fine print of my contract, if I had written this book while I was working there, this book would have been part of their intellectual property. I wouldn't have had the copyright on it. So that is how, the degree of control. So I think one part is that. The other part is also it depends on how you treat the contract workers. So for example, in advertising, you had certain people, like especially in the creative team, who were technically contract workers. They were technically contract workers only so that they could be paid a higher salary, but they functioned and they worked pretty much as if they were employees of the company. So they were very integrated. On the other hand, you have people who are contract workers to the extent that they don't even ever come into the office. They're just a face on a Zoom conference. So, being inside, I think it depends on the company on how they're treating the contract workers, how they're integrating, and also how much the worker wants to be part of the corporate culture.
So what would you say, what would be the company's relationship with this person who's a contract worker? Do they treat them as a regular employee? And what happens to the dynamics between this worker and the rest of the employees? I think this is increasingly, I'm sure companies are going to face this.
Yes, so I think that depends on the employer and what is their policy regarding contract workers and why do they have contract workers in the first place? Like, for example, the example I gave from advertising, the only reason that those people were not technically contract workers, the only reason they were created as contract workers was because as an employee of the company, there was a salary cap. And because the company wanted to hold on to their creative talent and give them what they felt they deserved, on paper, they made them contract employees. So what is the reason for having a contract employee? Is it a short-term project? Is it something that you don't have in-house experience and you just want to hire somebody to do it and finish it? So I think it depends on a lot of factors. I think Mr. Shiv Kumar was talking about an example from Titan. Maybe you could he would know more about it than I do.
Yeah, Shiva, would you like to?
Yeah, very nice question, Vinay, because every organization today has a set of people who are contracted and set of people who are direct employees. I'm going to answer this question from two parts, from my manufacturing experience and also as a retailer with Titan and Tanishq. Now, Titan as a brand has taught not only me, the whole country, about a culture that they maintain within the organization. It was Xerxes Desai who paved the way. The first thing is that we need to provide the service to a customer, whether you're a franchised outlet or a company outlet. And his emphasis was on building a culture which is the same. We all belong to a single family, and therefore there's a single culture. What is the culture? Please be frank enough. Accept your mistakes. We are there to guide you. Please be quite open. Please be transparent. Please be innovative. Please be a problem solver. You may be a high achiever or a low achiever. You're still the same for the company. And the kind of experience that they gave us, Xerxes made us travel across Europe, across Australia, New Zealand, across many places to understand the global trends, which he could have done for the company employees, but all of us as franchisees were made to travel across the world. That's the importance of a contracted franchisee and how we have now been the front end of the brand across to the customer. Let me tell you one more example. My own employee, I run a franchisee outlet, will carry a Tanishq card. You won't say that I'm a contracted, we're a franchisee of Tanishq. We are a part of Tanishq, we are a part of Titan, and all of them carry that particular card. There is no differentiation. Even there are incentives sent from the company saying you're part of the company to their direct employees. So it is an integration between contract, employee, franchisee, owned outlet, and therefore we look at it as one family. From a manufacturing side, I do a lot of work for Leyland, for tipper bodies and haulage bodies. I have a lot of contracted people. I have a very, very unique distinction in my manufacturing of running a company with contracted and with employees in a place like Hosur, which is highly unionized, and with about 1,000 people, 30 years, 35 years, not a single day strike, no layoff, no lockout, no suspension, no dismissal, and we won the national award. And even now, during the COVID, we had contracted employees. We said we will still pay for the contracted employees. We made sure that the North Indian people stayed back. We were featured in the newspaper. There is no difference that we've created between the contracted employee and our own employees. In fact, we are tying up with some colleges to help them seek further education. Education is the only one that can transform their family. So even for a contracted employee, we're looking at education to be provided in order that they grow in their life. Thank you.
Yeah, that's Titan is a wonderful example. Well, I really don't know how many corporates would follow this kind of a policy. Right. So shall I go on?
Yeah, go ahead. Do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so Divya, again, you have touched upon many of these instances also in your book, and the aspirations of the young people who join companies, even the young people I see in my company, their aspirations are all quite different. I mean, when we were young, I think it was very important us to earn a good salary. Then we looked to, buy our first car. Then we looked about buying our first home. But I find the youngsters today want to soak in experiences. They're not so much into, buying assets or, holding on to assets. And they just want to soak in experiences, maybe go on a holiday or take some courses. And so how do companies, you think, should deal with aspirations of this kind? I mean, they come with a different mindset. So what do you think? How does this impact a company's culture?
That's a very interesting question, Vinay, and I think that applies specifically to Generation Z. I think it's also the context of the generation. So when we were young, there was no Ola, Uber. There was either public transport, either, you get dhakkas in the BST bus, or you have to have your own car. And therefore, the car was a great aspiration. Today, you have Ola, Uber. I just tried a fantastic electric vehicle cab service in Bangalore called Blue Smart. So you have all of these options, and then you don't have to worry about things like parking and, other problems like, if the road is bad, then how do I drive through it or whatever. So I think the younger people, the context has changed. They have these things available, so they are attracted by it. And yes, you're right, experience is very, very important to them. So how do we make work an experience? I think that is something maybe companies and specifically their HR departments need to think about, that is coming to work an experience that they are looking for, because work is a very important part. And I think every generation, including Gen Z, wants to feel that they're making a contribution, that they are doing something, worthy of vindicating for themselves. So, what is that? Like, for example, is there a social purpose behind? A lot of them are also very important, very interested in environmental issues in terms of sustainability, because being younger and seeing the disaster looming on the horizon, they are much more concerned about it than maybe we are. And so, what is the corporation's contribution? How are they making work and experience? If it's not just about the absolute amount of money, what else are they? Are they creating community outreach so that, if these people want to be a part of something bigger than themselves, are you creating that opportunity within the corporate community itself, rather than them having to kind of do it on their personal time? So I think things like that could probably be thought of.
Vinay, can Gopal take some questions? Sure. Yeah, Mr. Gopal, go ahead with your questions.
To her.
Yeah.
One thing which I just wanted to check with her. No, when I read the book, she was talking about the gender bias. See, when you look back the gender bias, there are 2-3 things that we talk about. When you read an article, you say that India's GDP has not gone up over the years because we haven't used the potential of women. Okay, that's where China used it, and therefore use as much as possible. But India is not a monolithic country like everybody else. It's got different culture, different kinds of background, urban, rural, a lot of such value systems. In such circumstances, in the urban women have come in, there are certain things are inevitable for a woman, even if they don't wish to. Under those circumstances, when you say maternity period, she goes on leave. But then you say you have to be treated on par. She's on leave, somebody is promoted. She feels humiliated because of this. But there's another rule which says that she was not part of the system. Somebody else has achieved, therefore he is to be recognized. She isn't willing to, because she thinks she's been forced to take it because being a woman. It's not that I was willing to give birth to a child, but I was forced. Therefore, why should I give it up? And first 25 years, you train a girl saying that you compete with that boy, be a first rank holder and everything. After 25 years, when you get married, you say, no, you change into culture. There's a complete conflict of interest, a conflict of ideas. How do we take this forward?
So what I have talked about in my book is not just from the point of view of a woman. And what I feel is it's basically, my hypothesis going into this book was that corporate culture is something separate and Indian culture is something separate. And that hypothesis was totally taken care of by the research, that it was wrong. And it is basically our attitudes as a society that is getting into corporate culture. And what I feel is, as a woman, I feel like, our, especially urban, affluent India that I'm talking about, I'm not really talking about the whole country, but for us, patriarchy is a very benevolent protectionism. And sometimes that comes in our way. And I feel, at work, when you say women can have maternity leave and then men have, either way, somebody is going to feel that it's not fair. And I think that is creating extra competitiveness from a gender perspective in the company. I feel, today there are opportunities for fathers to take paternity leave. I think opportunities and benefits should be equal to both genders. A lot of the boys complain that, the younger people, especially who worked in, call centers, who had to work odd shifts, they said the girls have transportation, we don't have transportation, it's not fair. And they have a point, and I also feel that there is this flexibility stigma. When a woman is having a baby, she has no choice. Even if she doesn't want to take maternity leave, she will have to.
Absolutely.
Right? It's not that she didn't choose to have the child, she did choose to have the child, but then she knows that this is something that she has to do. For a father, it's still a choice, and there is this flexibility stigma. Not everybody can be like Virat Kohli and say that, I'm taking it and I'll be celebrated on social media for it. There are men who would genuinely feel that, it's going to affect my, maybe nothing else but my camaraderie with the team, because people are going to make fun of me for taking paternity leave. So I think it's something that, we have to kind of encourage. If you make it fair, somebody takes, suppose 6 months maternity leave. Do we have opportunity for fathers to take 6 months if they want? And if that is a fair thing, then yes, the person who is not away for 6 months will not get promoted. Okay. But the person who is in the office does get promoted. So if a woman cuts short her maternity leave and says, no, my husband will take care of the baby and I want to go to work, that should also be a choice that a young couple should have, both the man and the woman.
Another question from you?
No.
Or okay. Divya, you spoke about the 4 pillars, which is in the HR side, which is the physical side of the employee, the mental side, the emotional, and the spiritual one. I'm sure a lot of organizations have worked to improve the employee's morale and happiness, and these are the 4 pillars for improving his happiness. So, are there companies now focusing on the spiritual side? You must have heard about a lot of companies which have started focusing on the spiritual side in order to bring about a balanced life.
So the 4 pillars were actually mentioned by Mr. R.R. Nair, who is the HR expert.
Yeah.
And yes, there are some things like, for example, when we were talking the break, I remember that when I was doing my management training at Lintas, we had a course on transcendental meditation. You know, so there are things that you can do. Also, in terms of, sometimes the offices like to celebrate little festivals. The HR will have a competition for who has the best Christmas tree or something. Sometimes that also can kind of bring that spiritual dimension in. Also, it's about understanding that, the employees themselves may want to, like you have breaks for, say, physical or mental health rehabilitation. Could there be something for spiritual, like encourage people to kind of, be part of their communities and their whatever religion or faith that they are following. I think there is scope for that. Of course, the organization can't take the complete responsibility for the spirituality, like they can't for the health. The individual also has to be participative and willing.
Group Captain, do we have time for some question or? Yeah. Yeah, take some online questions.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shiva Kumar. We got a lot of questions. Over 470 people are watching it online. And we got a number of questions. We got another 10 minutes. We'll try and accommodate as many questions as possible. Here's a question from Mr. Ravi from Chennai, just to Divya. He says, Madam, I want to talk to you about the grapevine communication. How effective can the corporate, the way they use the grapevine, and many a time it is used to the advantage of the CEO bosses rather than advantage of the employees. What is your opinion on this type of communication and how is impacting the corporate culture?
Yeah, so I think grapevine communication is actually not within the management's control. It is what is organic and what flourishes as what in the communication industry, what we would say word of mouth. So you can do things that will stimulate that. So if the company does events that people will want to talk about, that's great. But equally, if they do something bad which they want to hide, they may not be able to hide it. So it's very much like word of mouth. It's something that's not really in the company's control. But they can have, you treat it like PR. You do little things that will generate more positive conversation for yourself.
Good. Here's a question from Gurumurthy from Pondicherry, Dr. Shiva Kumar. Sir, you mentioned in your thing that there was no strike or layoff in your organization at Osho. What is one single major factor contribute to the success? And how much the organization culture helped you achieve this in this context?
Yeah, very nice question. Want of time, I'll condense it. See, Hosur has a very turbulent, and every organization, whether it was Titan or Ashok Leyland or TVS or any manufacturing unit, there used to be 4 or 5 colorful flags outside of different unions. And mine didn't have any flag, basically because I was incurring a loss and union did not want to enter a loss-making company. That is when I went into some research with a lot of producers. I visited their house, I had dinner with them and asked them, why is it that many of you resort to strike? And after going deep in the conversation, most of them said, sir, I am a welder. My son will become a welder and my grandson will become a welder. But in your case, you're a managing director. Your son will become a super managing director. And therefore, there's a divide. And there's the only way for us to get what we want is to rebel. And that's why the labor union and the strike. So that brought a deeper thought in me. And I thought the only way to make my company different from the other companies is to look at education for children. And I brought about a new scheme called Gen Next scheme, where the children were actually attached to people in Chennai, be it lawyers, doctors, sportsmen. And they said, just guide them, don't give them money. Give them your mind space and not money. And so many of them came, took that message from the Chennai people and they started transforming and they said, look, my son is doing better. He's equivalent to my supervisor's children. He's equivalent to my manager's child. And there is, then you found a big difference in the way the companies run. So that one single point is education for children.
Great, impressive. Here is a question from Prema from Chennai, that was to Divya. Madam, are there any limitations or drawbacks to relying on Jugaad in Indian corporate culture? How does Jugaad manifest in Indian corporate culture? Is it good for the organization or not the right way?
Yes, so I have a whole chapter on Jugaad in my book. And one of the things I feel is that Jugaad is really a desperate creation when you don't have any other recourse. And, in the short term, when you really are, worried and you need to do something, you just need to make it work, it's okay to use Jugaad. But it's also better in the long term to think of a long-term solution. So for, the example I like to use is of a startup. If it's a small one-city startup, say only in Chennai, and there is some transport problem on the ground, and you solve it by doing Jugaad with some local transporter that you know, that's great. It'll work for that as long as you are only limited to Chennai. But when you scale it up nationally, you may not be able to use that same sort of Jugaad in every city that you go to. So you also do need that long-term thing. It's okay in small things to do it. The other thing is also that we generally frame an ethical breach as Jugaad. So for example, I'm driving late in the night and I'm desperate to get home, and there's a one-way street, which if I take, I will get home faster. And I'll say, oh, I'm a woman alone in the night, I'm doing this Jugaad just for my safety. So it is an ethical breach. Maybe in the middle of the night, nothing matters. But if I start doing it even in the middle of the day, I'm going to have an accident. I'm going to create a problem for somebody else. So we have to be careful how and when we use Jugaad. And we have to also make sure that we can't rely only on Jugaad. Long term, we need better, long-lasting, sustainable solutions.
Good, man. As Indians, we are used to Jugaad. We very, very successfully do that. Here's a question from Mr. Ramesh from Chennai. Others from Mr. Giridhar. He says, sir, you are from a group of company which has a deep-rooted culture built over a number of years. Can you share with us one most important practice which is very, very unique to your organization, not really followed in other major companies?
Yeah. See, as I was mentioning during my speech, most of the companies are valued by the revenue, profit, and everything. But in a company, we don't run the company. Profit is not the only reason for running the company. There are many, many other things the company is supposed to contribute to the society. The company that I represent is 150-year-old today. And we have gone through a lot of flips and falls and ups and downs. But we stuck to the culture that we wanted to bring in. That is being ethical, being honest to society, to the employees, to every stakeholder of the organization. That's what keeps the company going up and stable. Maybe we are not the number one in the market that we operate. Maybe we haven't made the best of the money that we can make in the industry. But we retain the business for 150 years, probably expecting to go for a few more hundreds of years, just because it's one. Stick to the fundamentals and the value systems that has been taught to you by our culture and systems of India. That itself will take you to the place. That's it.
Great, sir. Working in a 150-year-old company is a real privilege. Here's a question from Mr. Pattabi from Salem. He says, others to Divya. Madam, I was a blue-eyed boy of my boss due to my work ethics and honesty. But my HR did not like this and always an opportunity to pull me down every time. Do you think this has got anything to do with the organization culture, or maybe my boss could have avoided this?
I think it's a little very specific thing for me to speculate on. But it's possible that, maybe the HR director has got complaints of favoritism or something. It may not be his opinion. It may be something that, other people are bringing up. So I think you need to find out what exactly is the problem. Is and maybe be a little honest with yourself. You may not want to tell everybody, but think for yourself. Is your boss treating you better than he's treating the other people on the team? And could possibly somebody see it as unfair? And if you also feel it's unfair, then maybe you need to talk to your boss about it. But if you feel something else is in thing, maybe it's best to kind of talk to the HR director directly and say, look, there seems to be some problem, and what do you think that is?
We got another 5 minutes.
Yeah, two questions. Just one quick one. Vinay, I think somebody spoke about maternity leave and 6 months for the woman and all that. One side, the press can make a big impact. If you tell ESI and all of them to cover men also for the leave, Right now the women are covered for 6 months leave. So if the men part of it is also covered, many of the blue collar jobs will get that leave, can be helpful.
It's already covered in some of
No,
the
I
US
don't think
companies.
for the men.
Men, yes.
Covered? Yeah.
ESI, I think ESI. Right? Otherwise,
Yeah.
corporate thing,
Yes,
men are covered.
It's not covered, right?
I think
Yeah.
blue collar.
Blue collared, yeah.
Blue collar,
And
anyway,
Divya, you've been in the advertising agency for 20 years. If there's a one-liner that you'd like to tell the audience to tempt them to buy the book, what is that one-liner?
bite.
That's too simple and that's too easy, right? I think the one-liner is that these are the conversations that everybody, I don't think there's anything new, but these are the conversations that, you need to have out in the open. So this book will give you a way to kind of have that conversation. If you don't want to be very personal and direct about your own experience, you could kind of use the book to bring up those conversations at work and maybe sort out some things for yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah, one last question for the evening. Any question for the audience? You have to write a slip, sir.
Yeah.
Give him a slip. Write a question, or I can give a microphone, it should be very brief. Yeah, give it to him, microphone. One last question from the audience.
Thank you, Group Captain, for the opportunity. I'm Suresh. I was a HR person in many companies, including Titan at Hosur. So I know what Mr. Desai has spoken. Just have a thought. I'm now a HR consultant, like all retired people are, or at least we get into it. So when I call up somebody at the other end, I get a very younger voice, not the 50-year-olds or the 55-year-old HR people or the CEOs. That means the age of the company in terms of the age of the CEOs or the HR people is getting younger. So suddenly you find some 35-year-old kid, kid according to me, but he is maybe a senior person in his company, he answers. So what do you think is I think this is the thing of the future, and I think we have to accept it. But isn't there a sort of a divergence between the wise old heads, the gray hair, like, for example, Mr. Vinay, which shows wisdom, and the youngsters who come with things and they talk as if they know everything in the world. But they might be the experts. They might have come from Stanford and all that. So what do you think? Do you think the companies are getting younger, and do you think it's for the good of the organization? Thank you.
Vinay?
Thank you, Suresh.
Mr. Suresh, I think about maybe 7-8 years ago, I wrote an article which was on the front page of BusinessLine, and we called it Indian CEOs Hail from Youngistan, taking a line from Pepsi's ad line. And in that one, I'd actually done a kind of a dipstick study of Indian CEOs, that is CEOs of professionally run companies, not family-run businesses, because anyway that the chairman's son would probably be the CEO at 27 or something. And I found that many of the professional-run CEOs, professional company CEOs were in their 40s, unlike a generation earlier where perhaps the CEOs became CEO only in their 50s. And even like Ms. Santana Saint-Gobain was just 39 when he became CEO, when he's the founder CEO of Saint-Gobain. And there were many, like D. Siva Kumar, a lot of CEOs just became CEO in their 40s, which was unlike a generation earlier. And in that one, some of the HR people I spoke to were saying that younger people are getting more varied experiences at a very young age, and the skills that the job requires, contemporary jobs require, these people come with those skill sets. So that's why they're coming into these senior roles at a very, very, very young age. Not talking about startups, which anyway will have very young CEOs, but some of the professionally run traditional companies also have young CEOs. I don't know whether that answers your question.
Yes.
I'll share that article with you. So there are a lot of quotes from HR people in that.
I just want to add to what Mr. Vinay, just take 1 minute. I don't think the age alone is an issue. How much is seasoned? There are people who are at 60, react very weirdly sometimes. But how much of the exposure the individual gets it, how much of it is seasoned? No, just for talk about two people, Mr. Kumar Mangalam Birla, for example. He was the owner, shareholder, but he completely grew the company differently. He was referring to Mr. C Santanam. Though he was 39, I mean, in my opinion, I worked for him a long time ago, but he attaches a lot of importance to people. And most of the time, whether he participates in other discussions or not, when he recruits people, he spends a lot of time recruiting right people, which means there's a humane approach to the whole business. That's how the companies become very successful.
One last question, sir, and this is from Murugesan before it is, we just got 1 more minute. But somebody sent a message, sir, voice is a perception. If you ring up Lata Mangeshkar, you'll always find she's engaged. Somebody sent a message for the question. It's a question from Murugesan. He says, if you ring up to Lata Mangeshkar, you'll be always young voice. How is the concept of the carrot and stick? Just to Divya, one last question. How is the concept of carrot and stick applied in Indian corporate culture? What is your personal experience and how effective the carrot and stick approach works in Indian corporate companies?
Yeah, so I think carrot and stick is not only specific to Indian corporate culture, it's actually Indian culture itself, right? There are a lot of things we do because we see a carrot at the end of it. And if the carrot is attractive enough, then we will endure some of the sticks, right? So it can apply to things like, for example, my weight loss journey, right? Wanting to lose weight and be healthy is a carrot for me, and the stick would be the diet or whatever I would have to follow, the exercise I would have to do. But in the corporate context, to share a personal experience, many times I have been feeling when, that, okay, I'm working towards a promotion, or I'm working towards a certain perk that the company can give me. If I get an assurance from somebody that, yeah, I'm willing, that it might happen if you do A, B, C, then you might feel motivated to do A, B, C. But if you feel that, no, that is too much work for one person to do, and actually that carrot is not worth it, so it depends on what your personal level of motivation is and what motivates you. So I think from a corporate point of view, finding out what motivates the person is very, very important. Then you can kind of offer the right carrots to them. Like, for example, what Vinay talked about Gen Z, right? For them, getting a company car and a driver may not be the right carrot. Whereas for a generation back, that was a very big carrot, right? So I think it's applicable in different parts of life, but what is happening is we are in an age of personalization and customization. And I think that is what HR's biggest challenge is right now. Because as an employee, I don't really care with that, oh, you have these great policies, because these policies may not apply to me or I may not want them. But when I need a specific flexibility or a specific kind of solution from my work style perspective, if the company is willing to make that, that makes me feel, motivated and committed to the organization.
Thank you, Divya. I think we've totally run out of time. Thanks for ladies and gentlemen. Big round of applause to Distinguished panelists and author for a great evening. As a token of our appreciation, what we do is MMA does a lot of CSR work with the support of Access and also Super Auto Forge. There are a lot of children make a lot of very beautiful items, and that is what we packed and we're going to give it as a souvenir from our side to the distinguished panelists and the author. May I request Suresh Ram, please step on, come to the stage. It was an honor to present the memento to the thing. These are the pictures. Madam, please. Come. These all made by children.
Oh, thanks so much.
Come. Come, sir. No. Yeah. I can give it all. You can give it. Thank you. It's all items made by part of the team of Resorts. You can see them. Can I look? Yeah. These are made by 4 children from the government school.
Oh, thank you very much. It's really special.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Bye-bye. See you. Good night till we meet again. Take care.